Hey folks, it's Ardwulf. Welcome. We have a buddy unboxing today of Admiral's War, World War II at Sea. This is the 2019 edition of the game from Canvas Temple Publishing. And what this is essentially a revised and combined version of the Avalon Hill Classics War at Sea and Victory in the Pacific. So I'm given to understand. It's a big 3-inch box. This says complexity medium, solitaire suitability high. Okay. I don't think it's that complicated, but this is always objective. So, but let's see what we get, because it's real heavy. Let's see what comes in this thing. And this is something, as somebody that likes Victory in the Pacific a great deal. It's one of those Avalon Hill games where the only bad thing I have to say about it is it takes longer to play than I think it should. Alright, so box is of average thickness, actually. It feels incredibly sturdy when it's full of stuff. Let's see what we actually get. We get a huge bag of dice. Black, red, blue, and green. Here is a rulebook, which appears to be roughly a 32-page rulebook. That does appear to be correct. It is, there's a beginner scenario for the Pacific Theater. Looks like there's an example, there are examples of play, which is good. Alternate ship names. Looks like we're in optional rules. Here's Greek Navy. Hold on. It looks like we got about 30 pages of rules, actually. And we have a whole bunch of interesting things. Now, I've played War in the Victory in the Pacific, but I've never played War at Sea. So it kind of looks like this is enhanced at a glance. I could be mistaken. But again, it also combines both games. So we have a rulebook. This is on a magazine-type stock, glossy paper, full color, decent number of illustrations, not lavishly illustrated, but totally fine. We have a setup sheet aid. Okay, this is interesting. So this is like a 3-panel thing. Turn one. So these are British, these are American, these are French. These are all Allied ships. These show up at Pearl Harbor. These show up on the U.S. East Coast. Coral Sea, French Polynesia, Hawaiian Islands, Philippines. These are the initial setup. It smells like that might be the case. Okay. And then we have an Axis setup sheet, which is smaller, which is not surprising. Turn one. Yeah, okay. Okay, this makes sense. Here's your Germans, here's your Italians, here's your Japanese. And these are on a quite thick and very glossy stock. Quite an interesting stock, actually. Always like to see the setup cards. All right, so next we have a player aid of some kind. This looks like a setup thing. Initial port base control, U.S. location uncertain groups. That's for Pearl Harbor. It kind of sounds like both of these are for the Midway scenario. That cannot be the case. This has to be the Pearl Harbor scenario, and Midway would start later for obvious reasons. So, okay. So we have a relatively modest number of loose baggies. We have, all right, now I'm not sure how this works. We have 4 paper maps, but stay tuned, that look like supersized maps to me. Yeah, totally. These are totally supersized maps of some kind. Okay, then we get your turn record, Vichy holding box, and all your different sea zones here. And then there are mounted maps as well. We're going to have to take this apart with some care because this was not bought new. This was, well, it is in new condition, but it was bought off of eBay. So you can see that the counters are coming off of the sheets. We have mounted maps as well, 2 mounted maps. I'm always a little bit concerned when I hear mounted maps because I have had experience with mounted maps that were of really appallingly low quality. I don't know that that's happened anytime recently, but I was just talking with my buddy who dropped this off about the old 3W mounted maps, which were absolute trash. And in comparison, I just got an SPI mounted map game, which I was worried about because of the era that it was created in. And its mounted maps are fine. These are pretty nice. They have a bit of a sort of that sort of soft finish on them. That's kind of reminiscent of the counters from the Thin Red Line Games stuff. But you can see that these are like the single size. This is the single size Europe map. And then you have paper versions, which are much larger, which are about twice the size. So that's a really cool thing, I think, that you can go both ways on it. You can play it on the huge paper map, or you can play it on the slightly more compact mounted map. I mean, it's not really compact. It's 2 full-size mounted maps. So I do want to look at the Pacific map. Definitely a graphical improvement, big time, over the old Avalon Hill stuff. But that's a game that was released in the 70s, I believe. So that is not at all surprising. Looks really good. For those who don't know, who have never played Victory in the Pacific, and again, War at Sea uses basically the same system, and is supposed to also be good. It's the War of the Atlantic. It's a really neat and influential design. All right, now the counters, which, as we can see, are in fact falling out of the sprues. All right, so these are a quite thick brown core stock. And the punching is obviously completely good. So, or the die cutting, I should say. So we're going to have to try and do this off camera. Now, apparently, the back represents the rating side, and the front represents the non-rating side. But we have our Americans here. We have French fleet, the considerable French fleet, right? The French fleet was a big sticking point when the French surrendered. What was going to happen to that? And the British ended up sinking a bunch of it because they wouldn't scuttle it themselves, or defect to the Allied side. Here's your British, which is interesting that they're in green. That's unique. Well, I guess I'm not surprised because they put the Americans in blue. You got your Japanese in red, your British in very dark brown. It's not quite a black, and the Italians in kind of medium gray. I meant to say dark gray. Now these are Soviet ships, and here's your Greek Navy too. Here's a Dutch ship. There were a decent number of Dutch vessels that, they're in Empire of the Sun after all, in the Pacific War, and probably in the European War as well, although I don't know that they were decisive in any way in either arena. And then, of course, we've got our air and ground forces here. And the Germans have a significant number of U-boat counters, including the Type 21s. So, very nice looking components. Very pleased. Don't know what level of changes were made to the game, system. It does kind of look, just based on volume of rules that are in the books, like there's some options worked in, or some changes, or some enhancements, or some additional chrome has been added of some kind. I don't own a copy of the original, so it's going to be difficult for me to judge that. But we'll see if we can't take a look at that. And in the meantime, we're we're going to have to put this back together in a careful way because of the loose pieces. Admiral's War. I think there's another printing of this coming. Probably sometime in 2021 would be my guess. If this bears out its promise, then I would consider it very strongly picking it up myself. And in fact, that's kind of in the works, in the plan. Well, it's in the plans. We'll see what happens. Right now, a lot of stuff's in flux. So, unboxing of Admiral's War from Canvas Temple Publishing. It's the first thing I've seen from Canvas Temple Publishing, and the component quality is very pleasing. So, if you've enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the little bell icon to get notified when new content comes out. There is a Patreon link in the video description if you'd like to support Ardwulf's Lair. It would be greatly appreciated. Until next time, thanks for watching and happy wargaming.